if I supply something to a person who may be related, say my son is at USA, I supply him some services and he really pays to me, then export happens. Law does not say that between related party transaction happen, export cannot happen. If he needs my services, export happens. There, if the term would have been used, say related parties, it would not have been export, but the term is not used that. Secondly, why this particular is there? Say the last term, persons who are associated in the business of one another, and that is the sole agent or sole distributor or so. So if there is a sole agent, right? So the agent is a intermediary. Agent, say foreign person is an Indian person is agent and he is a sole agent. So both these persons are distinct person under the GST law. And if any service is rendered by this agent to that foreign party will not be treated as exports. So if I am a sole agent and I supply my some services to foreign party, not an export, taxable, but here further I'll have to see, because of my this definition, I am a related party to that foreign person. So my transaction, the value of the transaction should be at arm's length price. It should be at a normal valuation. It cannot be at a lower valuation, so that the exchequer should not use. So you can extend this in this way, but related term does not affect in any way to the distinct person. Well, I have tried to make clear the conceptual side of the subject. Now I'll take you in next half an hour to certain rulings, how this particular definition were looked under the earlier law and how this definition is looked under the GST law. We have at our disposal advanced rulings on the subject, and we also have now certain court rulings which we will see. So let me take you through this. Sir, is it going on properly? I mean, my pace or my clarity or so? Or you have any suggestion? Yes. Huh?
No,
so
no,
half
sir.
an
Absolutely
okay.
right.
Thank you, sir. And nobody needs to worry about this presentation. I am to share today itself once my session is over, and need not take down. Just try to understand the concept and have your some questions in last 10-15 minutes, whatever will be at our disposal. I'll be trying to deal with that. So how these rulings, advanced rulings will apply? Somebody else's advanced ruling applies to me, or my advanced ruling will apply to somebody. Will advanced ruling of another state apply to me in Maharashtra or vice versa? And the court rulings applicability. Let us see that what the GST law provides for. I'm taking here the first marine consultancy services, and it is treated as an intermediary services. And what is this services? Let us understand. Marine consultancy services provided to foreign ship owners to identify the charterers is not a composite supply, as every service is important and independently possible to perform or engage by foreign ship owners. So what exactly is this service? Is this particular industry, the foreign ship owners, they sail throughout the world. So they know that in the month of say July, August or September, that ship will be coming to India, an Indian port. And maybe after another 15-20 days, whatever goods are brought by that ship will be unloaded, and they want to carry export consignment from India to the other countries. So they know that in August or September they'll be coming. So they appoint some agents in India. And they say that my ship will be moving to say these 2-3 ports of India. during approximately this time period, and whosoever wants to export their cargo, they can approach us and we will take that consignment to a foreign country. My cargo can take liquid, my cargo can take the metal, or my cargo is entire open. You can entirely use or so, depending upon nature of cargo and requirements. So then they appoint certain agents that they will be identifying the charterers who are needing of these services, and then they will say, okay, here are this, and then they contact. In August, September, the transaction happens, and based on that transaction, I get the commission. I get my service charges. Now this is treated as intermediary because I am nothing but an agent of that foreign ship owner as per my understanding, and I give this. Answer is yes, intermediary, not an export. In case of this 5-star shipping, advance ruling Maharashtra as well as appeal ruling Maharashtra ruled like this. Okay. Another example. Somebody receives the commission for procuring orders for foreign principals from Indian importers and treated as intermediary services. So what exactly is this? There are certain foreign principals and they want to sell the goods in India. So they appoint certain persons as their agents and they identify the Indian importers that, okay, this person needs, or whenever any Indian importer needs that particular product, they will contact this particular agent of that foreign company. And I say that, okay, I'll need this. That agent passes on that order. The supply happens directly from foreign party to the Indian importer, and the agent gets commission every month or every quarter, depending upon the arrangement and agreement, and he receives in foreign exchange. But the law says it is intermediary. Why? Because, and same with this particular ruling also given like that, that though the commission is received in convertible foreign exchange to a German principal exporter. So they gave some commission. What for? Because I procured the orders from Indian importers is nothing but intermediary services and not an export. Taxable in India, liable to 18% as per this micro instruments Maharashtra advance ruling in August 18. They went in appeal for some issues, and in appeal the authority said, sorry, the lower authority, advance ruling authority, made some error. They went beyond their jurisdiction, and under the advance ruling powers, we cannot give answer to a question which is in for related to a place of supply provisions. So for that, if we have given answer, then it is not within the scope advance ruling authority. So that original advance ruling authority quashed this. So this is now quashed and not there as on the record. Say. Then another example, let us see. Commission received from a foreign university on admission of students' intermediary services. So how this works, let us see. The applicant company is a representative or an education agent who renders overseas education advisory services. This is to promote the foreign universities courses amongst Indian students. And we get commission in convertible foreign exchange from the foreign universities as a percentage of fees only on enrollment of a student. And the ruling says this is an intermediary services, not an export of services. Why? The reason is there is an agreement with the foreign university of this particular person, who may be a company, a firm, or an individual. And there is a clause in this particular that agreement that they appoint a person as an education agent of that foreign university. The agreement says you are an independent contractor and so on, but you have to view the agreement in entirety. The agreement has a clause that relationship is P2P and not as principal and agent. But all the terms of the agreement has to be considered, and this is nothing but an education agent of that foreign university. So the consideration received is not for the promotional activity. Applicant is not eligible to get any commission in case a student gets enrolled directly and not through that applicant. That means if I guide somebody but he does not get enrollment, he does not take admission through me, then in that case, whatever services I have rendered to that foreign university, they will not pay me because that person has not been admitted through me. Secondly, even after my consultation to that student, finally he does not take the admission, he does not go to that university, the university does not pay to me. So in short, I am nothing but a recruitment agent of that foreign university and not as an independent service provider. And in this case, it is treated as intermediary services and liable to tax. There are two rulings which I have reported here. There may be many. Let me tell you that here I might have considered some rulings which I thought fit. There are many other rulings also. So in this case, Global Reach is the appeal ruling from West Bengal, and Oceanic Consultants, the appeal ruling from Chandigarh. Here is another example of liaison with buyers and sellers of foreign clients, intermediary services. So this example tells us that when a liaison between buyers and sellers with respect to delivery, transportation of goods, settlement of payment, including back office, administrative and accounting services, as per the service agreement, qualify as intermediary and not export. So what exactly happened in this case? In case of We Serve Maharashtra advance ruling, which is also confirmed in appeal, they stated that the facility of supply of goods between its client and its suppliers and buyers, while they are liaising with the clients, buyers and suppliers, since the work relates to the supply of goods between client and client, supplier or customer, the goods clearly not provided on assessee's own account, thereby all the conditions are satisfied of intermediary, and the services offered by the appellant is in one package is nothing but the composite supply of which intermediary services is the main supply. So taxable, and if main service is taxable, composite supply, ancillary services will also be taxable. Very important observation here. The argument put up by the appellant that if you rule like this, it will result in subjecting the back office operations liable to GST and it will affect the entire industry, and is ill-found or misconstrued. Then the observation of the authorities, the ruling given by advance ruling authority is always applicant specific and based on the records available before the authority. We also peruse the agreement between the appellant and the client, which also was the subject matter of proceedings before the advance ruling authority, and the said agreement in no way restricted to scope of only back office operation. That means only back office operations transactions are there. Yes, that can be a services supplied on its own, but it goes beyond and is in the nature of intermediary. That means they said that it does not appear to be an intention of the advance ruling to tax the back office operations of the appellant. But because of your overall other services which you are rendering are the intermediary, so even certain back office operation services also will be liable to tax because of composite provision, their definition related or the leviability related to the composite services. This is appeal AR. Now coming to business support services, or is it an export or intermediary? Answer is export services. It is not intermediary. So let us now focus. Earlier we saw 4 or 5 examples of intermediary services. Now let me give you some examples of what is export of services and not intermediary. Very interesting. Now I'm taking you to this particular ruling, which was pronounced under the earlier law, but not that late. It was just pronounced in 2016. And this is in case of website related services. So this particular company, GoDaddy, is at USA, and they formed another company in India, GoDaddy India. So we call it as GoDaddy India is now proposing to render some services to GoDaddy USA. And these services are related to the website services. So what is the nature of service as per the agreement? Promotion and marketing of GoDaddy US services in India, which includes direct marketing, branding activities, offline marketing, supervision of quality of third-party consumer care centers, and payment processing services. So friends, suppose if somebody wants to sell the goods in India and appoints me as agent, I'm an intermediary. Same way for some services, if somebody appoints me as an agent so that they get the customers for their services, yet I'm an agent, I'm an intermediary. But now try to understand the exactly this particular transaction, this particular arrangement. Is it as an agent? Answer is no. It's a subsidiary company, and subsidiary company is not an agent. Subsidiary company may be related, but the law uses the term agent for intermediary. So let us go further. How this transaction happens. So GoDaddy USA would be the only customer of GoDaddy India. So maybe there a person may be catering to only one customer. It may not be catering to many customers. GoDaddy India would not provide any service for or on behalf of GoDaddy USA. See the important aspect that they are not providing any services on behalf of GoDaddy USA. GoDaddy India is also not authorized to enter into any contract or agreement on behalf of US company. So I'm not authorized, and if I say agent, agent is authorized for everything. Whatever X can do, agent of X can do. Agent steps into the shoes of the principal. Any fulfillment of condition qua that product or services should happen, then the customer of that product can sue to that agent as well and can sue that principal as well, because I'm stepping into the shoes of the main principal. But this is not the case. They say that Indian company will not provide any services for and on behalf of US company. US company will be providing services separately. Only Indian company supplies services to US company. Indian company is not authorized to enter into agreement or contract on behalf of US company. And applicant will not secure the orders from customers and all everything. So that has been mentioned. Services to be performed by the applicant is provided to US company on a principal to principal basis at arm's length basis. So in this case, even the consideration was to be paid. See, very important now aspect I'm telling you. Can consideration be a lump sum amount? Answer is yes. I give you an example. Monthly lump sum agreement, lump sum consideration can be there, or it can be transaction based, or this is a third way of doing the consideration in any agreement. Consideration in convertible foreign exchange, how to calculate, called as a fee, operating cost plus markup at 13%. So the US company told Indian company that whatever are your operating costs per month, add 13% markup and give us the bill every month, and we will pay you Is this export of services? Let us see. So the consideration will not determine a transaction whether it is export or an intermediary. The nature of consideration, the pattern of working out the consideration can be different. Going further, it said call centers who provide services to their clients by dealing with the customers of client on the client's behalf, but actually provided these services on their own account. So what call centers does, say something answers about this sub product. So the customer of that product of foreign company, they will get answer from us, from a call center in India. But that doesn't mean that the services are supplied in India. The recipient of services is foreign country. That whatever services I am to render, I am not treated as an agent of this, and I am not categorized as intermediary under the earlier regime also. And similar services are provided by various Indian entities to overseas customers as a single package. There is no contract between Indian company and that US company. The benefit of services provided by Indian company accrues to US company outside India and held in the facts and circumstances of the case. The place of provision of business support services is outside India in terms of Rule 3 of POPS. And we saw that the definition of intermediary is nothing but picked up the same way of Rule 3 of 2012. So this case says they are not merely establishment of distinct person. So as there also there was a provision, and in nutshell, whatever Indian company is supplying the services and whatever consideration is received by this Indian company from its US holding company is treated as an export of services, not as an intermediary, and zero rated, not taxable in India. This particular ruling has been given in March 16. I really, some of you might have gone through this particular verdict, but you please read this. Very important aspect. You will come to know how we can distinguish between intermediary and a normal exporter of service. Market research and support service also treated as export of services. Now here is a Japanese company forms an Indian subsidiary called as Asahi India, and Asahi India provides sales, promotion and marketing support services to Asahi Japan. And along with the marketing support services, it also gives the back office services. Asahi India does not negotiate. Now see, understand how Indian company will not be treated as an agent or broker of that foreign company, and what role it plays. In this case, this Indian company does not negotiate or enter into contract. They are not authorized to enter into contract on behalf of that foreign company with any customer of Japan company. The service agreement provides that Indian company is an Indian independent contractor. The consideration also, they said, okay, whatever are your cost plus overhead expenses of your organization plus markup at 10%. And if at all you are liable to some tax, we will pay that tax also. Intermediary services, very important clause is this. How you will distinguish that whether a service is of intermediary nature or on its own giving services. So factors to be considered to classify the services as intermediary. You have to see the nature and its valuation. You have to see the separation of the values. Values of separation means supply main, supply separately, and this your services valuation separately. Identity and title. How the title into those goods and services is going to that two persons, between that two persons is to be seen. Intermediary person means a person who acts to arrange an agreement between two or more persons as a mediator or a link. In this case, it is treated as not an intermediary services but export of services, and this ruling was given in 2019 by the Advanced Ruling Authority of Maharashtra. And going further into this, appeal was filed by the department, and then the appeal authority of Maharashtra ruled like that no, it is a mixed supply of services because the person has raised a consolidated single invoice for all the services, and it falls into this category. And as it is a mixed supply, the tax rate will apply accordingly. They also categorize that the services will be covered under which accounting code. And finally, they said that regarding the place of supply, they said in earlier advance ruling that in that ruling that it was exports, and the appeal authority said no, sorry, it is beyond the jurisdiction of the advance ruling authority to say so, because we cannot determine this question in this advance ruling. So to that extent, the ruling was modified. So today we have no ruling regarding this particular services, whether export or intermediary in this case, because it is modified. Let me take you through. Sir, is it okay? Am I mean, going ahead properly?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I'll take another 15 minutes to complete my presentation, and thereafter, whatever time you have, we can have some questions, whatever you feel so.
Yes, sure, sir. Sure.
Okay. Administrative and support services, whether exports or taxable. So here is one another ruling which was given in case of NES UK, was a holding company, and they formed another company in India and one another company in Abu Dhabi. And there were certain transactions of supply of services were happening from Indian arm to the Abu Dhabi arm and so on. And the question arose that whether it is taxable. So they observed all these facts that no, they are not the establishment of the same person, though they are the group companies. NES India is not a branch or agency or a representational office of NES Abu Dhabi. Key managerial personnel and the board of directors are different. Neither of them holds shares of each other, so they do not control also. They also tried to explain that they are not related companies also. Clause of proposed intercompany service agreement, master service agreement, and also mentions that it is not a partnership or JV, so not agent also. So what services they were supplying? So holding company of UK had one arm at Abu Dhabi and one arm at India. An Indian company was giving some services to Abu Dhabi arm, and they were even receiving consideration. Now what services they were rendering? NES India renders services of accounting, invoicing, receipt payment posting, so bookkeeping and financials, credit control work, support assignment work, payroll assistance, scanning and storing of data, providing general advice or other assistance as required from time to time, and charged on a cost and time and cost basis as mutually agreed upon. So the billing was done like this: whatever is the cost of this Indian arm plus markup of 10% and receipt in convertible foreign exchange. So what is the observation? The observation of the ruling is both the companies are independent of each other, not an intermediary. As understood under the GST law, all conditions of exports are satisfied, and the service transaction covered between this NES India and Abu Dhabi is an export of services, hence zero rated supply, not taxable. This is the advance ruling given in December 18. Thereafter, realizing the error, the appeal ruling came that we set aside the determination of place of supply because we have no role to play, that we cannot rule that whether this is export or not and all that. So this particular again is set aside, but at least it gives some idea that how you have to look at it. Then coming to BPO services relating to shipping and logistics and all that, whether handling uh, all this particular activity. And here one question arose that can one say that if it is an intermediary services, and then if it is taxable, can you say that as a pure agent you can take deduction of certain payments and only management fee will be taxable? And here the ruling given is that applicant companies arranging or facilitating the supply between the various person relating to intermediary. So that was decided that they are the agents and intermediary. And then they said that the they relied on that Asahi ruling and said that reimbursement of expenses will also be liable to GST and management fee will also be liable to GST and not as a pure agent. And this particular advance ruling was given by Maharashtra in August 9. Now, having understood or seen all these rulings, maybe some favor, some against, some saying intermediary, some saying exports, what is the role of this advance ruling? So the scope of advance ruling determine these questions of classification, what was the time of supply, what should be the value of supply, whether registration required or not, whether input tax credit will be available or not, and whether any particular activity is supply or not, only that. So the place of supply question cannot be determined in advance ruling. So applicable, this advance ruling will be applicable only to that applicant. So to that case only and to its jurisdictional authority until the law is amended or the fact is changed. So long as the same law, the same facts, then that particular ruling will be applicable to that particular person who has applied for, and it will be applicable to that jurisdictional authority in whose charge that particular case is lying. To other officer or to other assessee, this does not apply at all. Against that particular ruling, if he has gone in appeal and in appeal it is reversed, accordingly that appeal ruling will apply and so on. So this has been observed also in one of the ruling which I mentioned. Obviously, legally it is not applicable, but it will have some persuasive value for others, and you can take clue from some rulings under the GST law or even the earlier law. To explain exactly what do you mean by services rendered as an intermediary to a foreign person and services supplied on one's own account, how to distinguish, how to bifurcate. So for that, one circular was issued in July 19, but then later on in September 19 it was superseded. But you can go through this. Obviously they give some example scenarios, but finally the real crux and of the issue has not been properly explained. So they withdrew that particular circular and superseded by another press note saying that no, we withdraw that and don't consider that. In fact, I can say that it was not much giving some clarification also. So they said no, let the interpretation happen based on the facts also. Now, having known all this, having known the concept, some understanding of exports or intermediary, and in that case, now some important rulings which I'll discuss in next 10 minutes. Gujarat ruling and our Maharashtra ruling. This particular Gujarat ruling came in July 20, and the question was put up that quasi-intermediary services, section 13(8) clause B determines that it provides that if somebody gives a services to a foreign person, receives in foreign exchange, export of services, but if he's an agent or broker or as an intermediary, if he gives some services, then it will not be treated as exports. So the question arose that is this particular power valid under the provisions of the Constitution of India, or is it valid under the GST provisions made under the IGST law as well as the CGST and local state GST laws? Is the government having power to carve out separately the intermediary services and other services? So other services may be treated as exports, but intermediary services may not be treated as exports. So now the question rose in this particular petition. There is an association of this recyclers, and they approached the Gujarat High Court by way of a writ petition, and they said that you declare this section 13(8)(b) as ultra virus and unconstitutional, stating that the government has no power to provide a dimming fiction that in case of a person who supplies the services, if it is of intermediary nature, so the agent services also, broker services also, not as exports but taxable. Can a provision be there to provide that in case of intermediary, the place of provision of service will be treated as that intermediary's place and not outside India? For this, so in short, earlier we have to decide whether it is a intermediary agent services or another on its own separate service. After deciding also that suppose if it is agent service, intermediary services, yet here the question put up before the court is such a provision valid and constitutional? And for that they went into the High Court. So the members supply the services to their foreign principals. They are the agents. They are covered as intermediary. They receive the commission in foreign exchange, and they challenge the constitutional validity of section 13(8) of IGST law, that it is ultra virus, all these articles and so on of the Constitution. And they started submissions that the Parliament has power to confine and follow Article 286(1), and as per that Article 286(1), they are not authorized to legislate and artificially assign the place of supply to be within India when clearly the services are being exported out of India. As we saw that, who is the recipient of service? The person who agrees to pay. We took that barber's case. Beneficiary of service may be that child, but the recipient of service is that father who is agreeing to pay. Same way here, the moment I give the services to foreign company agrees me to pay. So this is nothing but recipient of services outside India, supplier is in India. How by a dimming fiction you can say that as you are agent, you pay the tax here? And for that, you are breaking the Article 286(1). Then they said the basic foundation of the scheme of GST law. I'll deal more time for the Maharashtra ruling rather than Gujarat. And I'll just hurry up this. The basic foundation of GST law, they said that a report was put up in the select committee report, and they said that okay, we will have to follow the destination based taxation principle, and based on this principle, the place at which the consumption happens, the state in which the consumption happens, only that is the right place to levy the tax onto that. So ultimately the tax should go there. And in case of the exports, we all know that in case of exports, internationally accepted that you export the goods and services, but you should not export the taxes. And as in India also, we know that we have to be competitive in the world. And now post pandemic, the China and all the countries are looking who next to China. And in such a scenario, if the world economies, world companies look at the India, maybe for import of goods there, or we getting the goods from there, or our services, or and the goods should be at a competitive rate and cheaper also, so that we get the business. Ultimately, the GDP rises. Ultimately, we get the foreign exchange to survive. And in that case, the principle of GST is destination based tax, and accordingly, any transaction which terminates outside the territory of India should not be taxed. Now, this is the some acceptance and the conditions and all that. In this select report also, they said that okay, to do away with the cascading effect of taxes, there should not be tax on tax, allow the credits. Now, if intermediary pays the tax, who gets credit? Nobody, because that foreign person is not registered in India. And hence, ultimately, if the intermediary has to pay the taxes, then the prices of his services and ultimately the goods will get artificially inflated, and to that extent it is nothing but a tax on tax. They said that this section suffers from the defect of unreasonableness, and how that unreasonableness, that some person gets the deduction as export of services, but some persons services treated as intermediary services, and you levy tax, so which is contrary to the object of the GST law. Parliamentary Standing Committee also gave a recommendation I have mentioned here, and they said that it is discussed that supply of intermediate service resulting in earning of foreign exchange would be hit by this section 13(8)(b) to prevent double taxation, that is the tax in India as well as in importing country. See friends, what double taxation they mean? When I supply goods from here to other country, exports zero rated, that country will charge taxation on import. Same way like what, when we import the goods here, the importer pays IGST, and as per the provisions as eligible for, he will take the input tax credit. So corollary of this, if I export goods from here to other country, the levy of tax will be happening at, if at all happen, it can happen at foreign country, not from here. Same way, if I render the services to a foreign person, who pays me the consideration, recipient of the service is a foreign person. In that case, if at all any tax to happen in that, it should happen. So generally the taxes are paid by the importer of goods and services. So if you levy tax here in intermediary, the double taxation happen in this way, that I am taxed here, even the same transaction, the second leg of that transaction is taxed in that importing country. So it is double taxation. So recommendation of tax TRU of CBI also says so, on the basis of place of effective use and the enjoyment of service. See, indirect tax principle is there, that whosoever consumes the goods or services should bear and pay. Now here the particular services are paid by that person, so he uses effectively the services, and in that case the tax, if at all can happen, it should happen there and not in our country. Even GST Council, the issue was discussed in September 19, and they also said some features will help to ascertain the intermediary service or not. As we saw earlier, number of parties, nature and value, separation of value, identity and value, title, which we saw in one of the advance ruling. So they said that we will come out with some circular and all that, but nothing has yet thereafter come. So there is one notification also giving some exemption to the service providers basis the location of ultimate recipient of goods. So if the goods are exported and then get some commission, this notification says, okay, no tax on to that. So they say that, okay, somewhere you give exemption, somewhere you don't give exemption. So it violates the Article 14 about the equality. And finally, the prayer is that the section 13(8) is ultra vires unconstitutional. You declare that. The revenue submitted that no, it's not an export. Taxability is purposeful and considered policy decision of the government, which is in consonance with the pre-GST era also was the same. You have not done anything new. And Revenue further submitted that Parliament has got wide amplitude to create dimming fictions under the taxation matters. They relied on certain Supreme Court. I have mentioned here the para numbers. Please go through both this verdict. Very important, maybe 50, running in almost 50 pages. Out of that, I have tried to carve out some points mentioning the paras also. They say differential treatment is accorded to intermediary services, which is not violative of Article 14, and TRU office memorandum has no legal force. Categorization for the purpose of taxation may be entirely different. So, but it is permitted. Supreme Court certain rely happen. They further submitted that parliamentary committee report is also to be treated as advisory in nature, and only GST Council is the right body to take certain decisions and consider this. So this is not violative of even Article 19 also. And strictly interpreting section 13(8), this is intermediary services is not an export of services. So the question of violation of Article 265 to 686 also does not arise. And then they said that regarding destination-based consumption tax, the provisions are governed by revenue consideration. They say we are also concerned with the revenue. And the provisions are well within the legislative competence, as the legislature is free to pick and choose the supply that it intends to tax. Internationally also, the intermediary services are treated distinctly. As suggested by OECD, intermediary is nothing but a go person between two person and agent also. See the para 61, some submissions made by the revenue I have put up in red, and that requires some different way of reading this. It said further commission income earned by intermediary is taxable in the hands of intermediary, and ITC of the same is also eligible to the intermediary, and thus no double taxation. So I think here there is something missed out. If intermediary renders the services and receives the foreign exchange, and if it is liable to pay the tax, it is on output side tax. How we can get the input tax credit, I don't understand. So I did not follow this, what exactly trying to convey. Actually, there is no ITC available of this because I am charging to a foreign party. Rather, he is not paying me also. He is paying me the net amount. This is nothing but a tax goes from my pocket. And then they have given some internationally in many tax jurisdictions such as Australia, the services of such intermediary to business remain taxable on reverse charge basis, and ITC of taxes is paid. So maybe that some submission they want to make that this is liable for eligible for ITC, but I doubt I have a different reading. A policy decision is subject to judicial review, maybe on this count and all that. So finally the court decide that whether it is ultra virus, and they have referred to this and then said no, this is not ultra virus, and this is a valid law. Here at para 67 and 68 I have put something in red. They said that there is no dimming provision, but there is a stipulation by the act under 13(8). They said it is not a dimming fiction, it is a law itself, rightly included in 13(8)(b) to consider the location of supplier as so as to attract the CGST and SGST. At 68, there's a services provided by the petitioner as intermediary would not be taxable in the hands of recipient of service. I beg to differ here, because if I supply the services to foreign person, it would not be taxable in the hands of recipient. How can say? Because the provisions of that country law will apply. And if at all there is an import of service in and that is taxable over there, it will be taxed. So I think there is some confusion in this statement. And another statement is a commission paid by the recipient of service outside India would be entitled to get deduction of such payment of commission by way of expenses. Now there, that is some income tax law and all that over there. So we cannot compare the direct tax law and indirect tax law and say that there is no double taxation or so. Well, ultimately they said, the court said no, section 13(8)(b) is not ultra virus and it is constitutional. Now let me take you through. I know we are exceeding the time limit. Just give me 5 minutes, please. So this particular ruling of Bombay High Court pronounced on 9th June by Justice Ujjal Ruin, Honorable Justice, and the Lordship said place of supply of service with respect to intermediary, section 13(8)(b) is ultra virus and unconstitutional. This is the case of Dharmendra Jani, 9th June. In this, I'll take you through this so that you will come to know how it is decided against and held as unconstitutional. Here is this proprietary concern registered under the Maharashtra law and CGST law. They provide the marketing service to foreign principals. Foreign entities may have establishment here or may not have. Agreements are ordinarily there. Petitioner solicits purchase orders for its foreign principal. So that foreign principal tells me that you get the order for me, I want to supply some goods or services to those and I will give you the commission for that. And that commission comes in foreign exchange. Indian purchaser imports directly from the overseas entities and they bill directly. The importer clears from the customs. The payment also is made directly by that importer to that my foreign principal. And when he receives the payment from that importer, after that, that foreign principal pays the commission to this petitioner in convertible foreign exchange against the invoice raised by this petitioner. And they receive the commission. So they say that this is nothing but export. This line is very important. The petitioner says that I am exporting my services as understood under 2(6), earning the valuable convertible foreign exchange. I am also an intermediary. He admits that I am an intermediary, but I am an intermediary exporting my services. So it is an export of services by an intermediary, a very important clause put up by him. And it said that by deeming fiction, intermediary services are made as taxable and not export is not palatable to him. And yet he pays the taxes under protest from his own pocket, which he has not collected from the foreign customers. And then this particular petition is filed and they said that section 13(8)(b) read with section 8(2) of IGST Act it says is not constitutional, and these 3-4 reasons are given. You are levying the tax on export of service, which is ultra virus, article 269A. Section 8(2) and 13(8)(b) are also ultra virus, the charging section 9 of CGST. The GST tax is a destination based tax on consumption, hence services provided from India to a service receiver outside India is an export which cannot be taxed in India. For taxing a service, it is not the place of performance but the place of consumption which is relevant. Once the services are consumed outside India, Parliament has no jurisdiction to levy tax on such services consumed outside India. Such levy is also violative of Article 14, which wants equality before the law. To some service exporters, you are exempting. Some services you are saying taxable, so there is no equality. So it is violating Article 14 also. Levy of the CGST and SGST, this is a very important argument. Levy of CGST and SGST on export of services constitute an unreasonable restriction upon the right of the petitioner to carry on the trade and business, and it violates Article 19(1)(g). GST is an indirect tax. The cardinal rule of indirect taxation is that it must be capable of being passed on to the end receiver of the service. Therefore, an agent cannot be burdened with GST. When I'm exporting service, I cannot charge GST. So, but if you say that you pay the tax, then I am to, the burden is on me, which is breaking the cardinal principle of the indirect taxation. Levy of GST is an on intermediary like the petitioner providing the services to overseas customer would lead to double taxation on the same service. Now, against that, revenue submitted that till 2014 also, say from 2014 onwards also such services were taxed. So there is nothing distinction between the GST provision and the earlier era provision. And they said that in fact by having such a provision of taxability, the foreign companies will come in India and start their production instead of just taking the services of agent. So in fact this will incentivize the foreign entities to come India, and which will nothing but is it in consonance with the Make in India program. Then they said that it does not lead to double taxation and so on. And petitioner further said that no, this my services are nothing but exports. Even the petitioner said that 139 parliamentary committee report had agreed that such a artificial exception should be done away with. And otherwise there will be no intermediaries or agent. They will lose the business in India, or the business will be shifting to other countries, say Singapore and also. So there will be shift, and by which even income tax we will receive lesser if you start taxing this. World over, the intermediary services are treated as exports. GST is a destination-based tax, consumption tax. It is a VAT. See, in GST also there is a VAT principle applied. If I supply at 100 rupees somebody to 110, 120, so value addition is tax, ITC is given. A tax on services provided and consumed within Indian territory can only be taxed. There cannot be any extraterritorial operation or nexus relying in certain case laws. Also, they have reported of Supreme Court verdicts. They said that levy of CGST and MGST on export of service by intermediary is arbitrary, unreasonable, and for which they relied that they said that this is violative of Article 14 and relied on certain Supreme Court rulings. Then they said that the levy of tax on export of services ultra vires of Article 246A also and 269A also, and they say that state law cannot impose tax on supply of goods which ultimately is taken outside the country. And finally they said that the double taxation also, the same supply will be taxed in the hands of petitioner here, and it will also be taxed in the importing country. So there is a double taxation on the very transaction, which is not accepted internationally also. And finally, the revenue said no, the statute cannot be struck down as it is not an arbitrary, it is constitutional. They also relied on certain rulings, and strongly they relied on Gujarat High Court ruling, which we just discussed, that we should follow that. And ultimately the court started its observation. It said that the ruling of All India Federation Supreme Court, it was concluded that VAT is a consumption tax. So this is now very important observation. VAT, or let's say now GST, is a consumption tax and it is to be borne by the consumer. And in case of intermediary services, who is the consumer? Foreign party. Service tax is also value addition based principle based taxation, destination based consumption tax. So ultimately the court has said that when the consumption is happening outside India, it should not be taxable in India. And they relied on many court rulings which I have mentioned here. And they said that extraterritorial operation can be enacted which has no nexus in India. That is not permitted. Unless contingency exists, Parliament shall be incompetent to make laws having extraterritorial operations. Parliament has exclusive power to make laws with respect to GST where the supply of goods or services happens in the course of interstate trade or so. And Article 269(1) says that GST on supplies in the course of interstate trade shall be levied and collected by Government of India and shall be apportioned as agreed by and recommended by GST Council. They said that the Parliamentary Standing Committee also in December 17 had also made the observation that intermediary services should be treated as exports, intermediary services should be exempted from taxes, GST, and that they said that you utilize the power given under Section 1313 of IGST Act, and you do not tax the uh, services going outside India. And even GST Council in its paper in April 18 reiterated that this is a destination-based tax, consumption tax, and now we are not accepting or following the principle of origin-based taxation. So under this, the tax accrues to the destination place where consumption of goods or services take place. So that is why we have IGST. So, but there cannot be IGST in case of exports. So finally, they said we give even deemed exports and all that. Careful reading of this Article 246 and 269, levy of GST and levy of IGST. Constitution has only empowered Parliament to frame the law for levy of GST and so on. Thus, Constitution does not empower imposition of tax on export of services, even by treating the same as a local supply. So I think they have finally said that this is an export of services, and the overseas foreign customers falls within the definition of recipient of supply, so an export of service, and the expression export is to be understood in ordinary common parlance. Export term is not defined in other general law also, and they said that Section 1382B, 8B and 82 has created a fiction deeming export of services by an intermediary as local supply and an interstate supply. This is definitely an artificial device created to overcome a constitutional embargo. Question for consideration is whether creation of such deeming provision is permissible or should it receive imprimatur of a constitutional court. Then they said that Article 286 1B also has some certain embargo. Interpretation of export and import also taken. They took the ruling of our earlier law, and they said that finally Parliament being unconstitutionally restricted from enacting extraterritorial legislation, but such restriction was made subject to certain exigencies, such as it should have some real connection to India, which should not be illusory or fanciful. So does the Parliament has power to legislate for any territory other than the territory of India? The answer is no. And finally, they said that the artificially creating a deeming fiction in 1382B runs contrary to the scheme of the GST law and IGST law. And they said with utmost now, so Justice Ujjal Bhuyan declared this levy of tax on intermediary services as unconstitutional. But the other justice had some different thought in his mind. So they both said that, okay, we say that Gujarat High Court judgment may not apply here and all that. But finally, it may have some persuasive value, but it is a settled statute that other state ruling cannot directly apply or as a precedent to the other high court of the other state. And they said that the Section 13(8)B is ultra virus and unconstitutional. But here the division bench other Justice Abhay Ahuja said, with greatest respect, being unable to persuade myself to share the opinion of my learned brother, I would like to record my separate opinion in the matter. And I think the matter is listed for tomorrow for pronouncing his opinion. So the Honorable Judge Abhay Ahuja will be pronouncing his view. So we can say that this is not yet conclusive, but the Justice Ujjal Buyan has declared this particular section as unconstitutional and ultra vires. With this, thank you very much. I thank all the participating officers. I thank all the seniors and the learned personalities of the GST department. Let me tell you, I have also learnt a lot by discussion with many officials, and whatever I have tried to put up in a simple terms, the complex subject allotted to me for the day. I am thankful to the training division, the officers in charge of the training division for giving me this opportunity to learn in depth and try to explain in a simpler manner. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions, whatever time you have or whatever you feel, so we can take this forward. I'll be definitely giving my this presentation during the day, which you can then circulate amongst all. Thank you. I mean, sir, any question, whatever you permit, or yes.
Yes. काही प्रश्न असेल तर कृपया विचारा.
सर माझा एक प्रश्न आहे, आवाज येतोय का?
येस सर.
हो येतोय येतोय.
आय कॅन हिअर. येस.
हा सर, माझ्याकडे एक केस आहे. माझा डीलर म्हणजे ए मुंबईत आहे आणि बी डीलर आहे तो सिंगापूरमध्ये, ती होल्डिंग कंपनी आहे.
राईट.
हॅलो.
येस सर.
आणि सी आहे, हा सी कंपनी जिनिव्हा मध्ये आहे, ती
ओके
पॅरेंट आर्म आहे. ओके
ओके ओके.
आणि डीए कंपनी आहे अनदर, ती देखील एक आर्मच आहे त्याची होल्डिंगची.
ओके.
तर सी आणि डी ज्या आर्म आहेत त्यांनी एक LLP फॉर्म केली मुंबईमध्ये आणि त्यांचा शेअर पर्सेंटेज आहे 99% आणि 1%. म्हणजे दोन्ही कंपनी बाहेरच्याच आहेत, फॉरेनच्याच आहेत. आणि त्यांनी मुंबईत LLP काढलेली आहे.
ओके
ओके. आणि ह्या LLP मध्ये डेसिग्नेटेड इंडियन पार्टनर्स आहेत. आणि त्यांनी एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ सर्व्हिस परत ह्यांनाच केली आहे, ज्याचे शेअर्स 99% आहेत.
ओके.
तर हा एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ सर्व्हिस होईल का सर?
येस सर.
म्हणजे डिस्टिंग पर्सन रिलेटेड इश्यू.
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, the holding companies and subsidiary companies are related persons under the GST law, but one company can give services to another company, and it is not their its own branch or it is not its own establishment. So the exports can happen between these companies, and there is no bar under the GST law. That is why I said that the term is used as not a related company, but establishment of the same company, which are the distinct. Say one company opens that same company and as a branch. So if X Limited Singapore, X Limited India, then only it is not possible for rendering services from Indian branch to their overseas headquarters. But these companies are separate under the law. They can supply the services which can be treated as exports.
Thank you.
Yes.
हॅलो, नमस्कार सर.
या नमस्कार
सर, मला एक प्रश्न विचारायचा होता. हे कस्टम हाऊस वगैरे असतात जे सर्व्हिस प्रोव्हाइड करतात की पूर्ण क्लिअरिंग करून देण्याचं गुड्सचं.
येस.
तर ते सर ते इंटरमिडिएटरी सर्व्हिस येणार की ऑन म्हणजे स्वतःची त्याची सेपरेट सर्व्हिस येणार ती?
हा, सी कस्टम हाऊस एजंटच्या नावमध्ये एजंट टर्म आहे, बट कस्टम हाऊस एजंट कोणाच्या एजंट नाही आहेत. जसं मी एक चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट म्हणून कोणाला सर्व्हिस देतो, तसंच कस्टम हाऊस एजंट सर्व्हिस देतो, पण तो एजंट नाही आहे. जसं एजंट आपण अंडरस्टँड करतात आपला जीएसटी लॉ मध्ये, आपला कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट ऍक्ट मध्ये, तसा तो एजंट नाही आहे. म्हणून इट इज अ इंडिपेंडंट सर्व्हिस प्रोव्हायडर. सो इट इज अ सेपरेट सर्व्हिस, नॉट एज अन एजंट.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So is it possible that two different distinct persons are also related persons?
Possible, yes, sir. Possible.
Thank you, sir.
Like what that I said, in the related definition, the second clause explanation says that if he's a sole distributor, so distinct person can be related person. So that is possible.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
There is a word refund application file on my desk, and it is related to export of services.
Okay.
There is one company in Pune, that is Perennial India Solutions, and
Right, sir.
they have found another company in Singapore, that is Perennial India Singapore Limited, Perennial Singapore Limited,
Okay.
and they have raised invoices of
Okay.
export of services. Then
Okay.
whether it will be treated as export of services or
Yeah.
not.
Got it.
The
So
characters are
India-
same, sir.
Okay. So Indian company is a separate company and Singapore company is a separate company, correct? So
They are
Singapore.
incorporating laws.
Yeah. So Indian company is a holding company of that Singapore company.
No,
Correct?
sir, that is not the case.
Okay.
Indian company is registered as partnership, and the Singapore company is a private limited company. The partner of Indian company are there in that private limited company also, and one another director there.
Okay, but in India it is a private limited or a partnership?
It is
firm?
partnership firm. In India, it is partnership firm. In Singapore, it is private limited company with 3 directors, out of which 2 are Indian partners.
Mm-hmm.
Sir,
Okay.
what should whether it is export of services?
See, I think if I understood the facts properly,
Yeah.
then partnership firm is carrying on the business in India
Yes.
and renders some services to the private limited company where some common directors are there
Yes.
and common some shareholders are there.
Yes.
Correct. So
Yes.
I got it. So I think if the same partnership firm
Yeah.
is not having its own establishment over there,
Yes.
then it is fine. If the same partnership firm has an establishment in that foreign country, and then if this Indian firm renders the services to that other country's firm, then it may not be treated as exports as per our law. But if they are two different persons, they are two different constitution, then exports can happen, sir.
Okay. Sir, can we say that the
See,
Singapore?
because 1 minute, because see the term, if in a section of export of services, if the term would have been used as related party,
Okay.
then I think many companies would have been out of the exports. But the term is not used as related party. Term is used as establishment of distinct persons. So
Okay.
if one firm is here and the same firm's one simple office is there, then the law says that that is treated as an establishment of this firm. So if something services happens from this firm to that establishment, not an export.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the way we'll have to look at it.
Can we treat that private limited company in Singapore as establishment?
No, sir, because both are separate persons under the law. And if we see the definition of the term person in our law also, proprietary is separate, partnership is separate, private limited is separate, limited company is separate. So I think will not be treated as the same person.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Bolo, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
good
my
afternoon.
question is about related persons.
Okay.
There is a big business house, and it has various companies. And one of its director or few of its directors come together and go to one hotel. And there is agreement between that hotel and this business
Group
house.
companies. Okay.
There is agreement. Now, what has happened? The employee of these companies, they go and enjoy the facility of the hotel. Now, the persons who are enjoying the facility are employees of this company. But can we say that these the hotel and these persons who are enjoying the facility are related persons?
Good question. See, we have to see the first relation and not the relation of relation.
Okay.
So suppose if these two units are fitting into the definition of the term related parties, related persons,
yes, sir,
as we saw the definition under the GST law,
yes, sir,
then any transaction between those two persons should be at the arm's length price.
Okay.
So if it is at a lesser value, then you can replace the market value and levy the tax on that.
Okay.
But somebody of that, another related person of that, then I think there is no law does not say to extend to that level.
Okay, but if that hotel is available only to this
Employees.
House, third person cannot go there.
Okay, so at least you just see that in the related party, related person definition also, if the holding is more than 25% or so, then only related.
No, actually, there is no question relation between that hotel and that business house. It is established that they are related person. My question is whether this employee and that hotel, can we treat them as a related person?
No, sir, no. If at all we have to apply the concept of related party to a transaction, then I have to see that whatever two persons I am comparing, are these two persons fitting into the definition of the term related? If answer is no, then I have not to think further. Whatever is the transaction value, I should accept it. But if a transaction between the two persons, say X Limited and that hotel, if they both are fitting into the term definition of related persons, then if that hotel is charging, say the market rate of that room is say 5,000 per day.
It is lesser
charging. So, and if it is they are charging say 3,000, then only question arises. Otherwise, if transaction between related parties also at a market value, and if that other party is also eligible for input tax credit, then the question will also not arise. No worry under our GST law.
My question is, suppose there is an agreement between that big business house and the hotel that they will make this facility available to his employees. Now, can we say,
sir, can I request you that due to some paucity of time also, because now lunch time is ahead for everyone, and particularly this is a very different thought process compared to our subject for the day. My number will be there. You can we can discuss offline also anytime, and let us right now devote time for the questions directly on this subject.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, please. Don't mind, sir. Yeah. I feel if no further questions, then let the training department take over and conclude.
कोणाला आहेत का प्रश्न अजून काही विचारायचे आहेत का? हॅलो.
Yes.
Okay, sir. I think
whenever the transaction is treated as an intermediate transaction and exports are not allowed,
Yes.
in that case, the question arises that the place of suppliers, location of supplier and the place of supply is the same thing, so in the
Yes.
same state. In
Yes.
this case, that transaction will be a intrastate transaction or interstate transaction, because there are
Okay.
many fluctuating view or advanced ruling of different state treating as a intrastate and interstate.
Right,
Just
sir. Right.
throw some light on this, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll. Good. Very important. I did not touch this particular aspect. Let me tell you that the moment, very important question you asked, sir. The moment it is say intermediary and taxable, then whether one should charge IGST or one should charge C and S, correct? Now here two school of thoughts are prevailing, and both have their own justification. The class of thought which says that this is to be IGST, they said that whenever there is a foreign currency transaction, then if not exports, the IGST law itself says that this transaction should be within the helm of the central law, and they should pay the IGST. And ultimately, when I put IGST, I also put the place of supply also. So where I will put the place of supply as Maharashtra. And in that scenario, as per the principles of the GST and the GST law, the apportionment will happen like this. 50% will go to central government and 50% of that IGST will go to Maharashtra government. And suppose applying section 13(8)(b), which says that it will be treated as a intrastate, and reading section 5 and 7 of IGST, if this is a intrastate, because the supplier of service is in Maharashtra, the place of supply of the services rendered by this intermediary also is deemed as Maharashtra. So one should charge the CGST and SGST. Now, when I charge CGST and SGST also, the CGST will go to the central government and SGST will go to the state government. So ultimately the revenue will be going to a right state, 50%, and 50% will go to the central government. So actually speaking, there is no revenue loss to the any exchequer. It is revenue neutral. Plus also the GST law has a provision. If I recall rightly, it is section 77 of the CGST law. And peri materia, there is a section 19 of the IGST law, which says that if suppose perchance somebody paid the taxes under the wrong head, then no problem. He should not be punished with interest also, because he has complied with the law. He understood the law in his way and he paid the taxes. And such a law compliant person should not be punished with interest also, no question of penalty at all. And such a person should be refunded the wrong tax paid and let that again go to the tax to the right way. So in my view, I think it will not make difference, but there are two school of thought, sir. Yes. Any further aspect into this question you want to ask?
So basically, sir, actually, in the case of intermediate transaction covered by 13(8)(b,
yes.
supplier is suppose Maharashtra and place of supply is also Maharashtra.
Right, sir.
Only the treating the transaction as a IGST, the provisions of section 8(2), where it starts with subject to the section provisions of section 12. And people say that section 12 is for a person who the recipient and both supplier and recipient both are in India. Then section 12 applies, and so because of the provision of A2, this transaction will not be covered as the intrastate and it will go to default section, that is 7.5.
Right, sir.
That is the behind treating that transaction as a IGST.
Yes,
but
yes.
you see in the jurisprudence of subject 2, if anything is, whatever provisions I am applying, if they are not contradictory to these provisions of section 12, then I can go straight away without causing any effect to the section 12, and it should be treated as an intrastate transaction. But because of
Right,
many
sir.
advance ruling, that
Yeah.
you, sir.
So, Shinde sir, rightly you have said, and that is why I said that two school of thoughts prevail. And both schools have a very justified reasonings. And as I said that this is a revenue neutral, ultimately he is paying the taxes. And earlier, for earlier law also, we have seen some judgments that, okay, if I have paid the CST, and if you say that no, it is a taxable transaction, that let the states decide, and if not this state, that state, then let the revenue, the government have inter-adjustments without disturbing to the taxpayer. So in my view, I think what you say is also reasoning given by that IGST. But let me tell you, one of the plea into this writ petition where Bombay High Court has declared this provision as unconstitutional, it says that only that the central government had power to only formulate principles what are the interstate transactions, and if they decide that interstate, then only they have the power to levy the tax. If they pass on this power further delegate to the state, I think they have mistaken there. So I think treating such an interstate transaction as deeming as local and then CNS, that itself is one of the argument in the writ petition. So I feel, yeah, thank you, sir. I think I've tried to explain. Anything else? We can discuss this whenever you feel so. You will get my number. You may be having, or you may get from the training department also. And if any issue is there, I'll be happily trying to answer that. And because some questions needs more facts, so I just today tried to discuss the principles and some examples taking, and tried to take you through some rulings and explain in whatever time available to us. But thank you very much for listening me patiently for almost more than 2.5 hours. And I know you must be tired also and heading for the lunch also. But thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yes, Makranji.
या काही प्रश्न आहेत का अजून? सर, शिंदे सर काही विचारायचं का अजून? किरण शिंदे सर?
नाही, तोच एक महत्वाचा प्रश्न होता, त्याच्यावर जास्त व्ह्यूज पाहिजे होते आणि त्यांनी प्रॉपरली आणि टू द बेस्ट ऑफ हिज नॉलेज आन्सर केलेला आहे.
ओके. डिप्टे सर, आपल्याला काय विचारायचं का? Okay, sir. I think
even if somebody has some question, my email ID is also there. They can write down email. I will answer. And if something is to be discussed, I can discuss one-to-one also. That also you can tell. And I'll forward my this PPT to you, which you can share with all.
Please, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So shall we conclude? Sir, I would like to express sincere thanks on behalf of training section for giving such an excellent session, and you covered almost all the aspects of this topic. So thanks a lot, sir. आणि बाकी सगळे आपल्या पार्टिसिपंटचे पण खूप आभार की आपण वेळ काढून एवढा 3 तास आपण दिलात आणि ऐकलं. मी लवकरच सरांकडनं, मला ठक्कर सरांकडनं पीपीटी मिळाली का मी आपल्याला सगळ्यांना शेअर करीनच. थँक्स अ लॉट, सर.
थँक्यू.
यस, सर. थँक्यू.
ओके. थँक्स. बाय एव्हरीबडी.